welcome to the Find Your Influence podcast. You've got Anton Guinea, and we've got an amazing special guest today. And that amazing special guest is the CEO of the Melbourne Storm, Justin Rodski, who we're going to hear a whole lot of really cool stuff from in relation to finding your influence, where we empower, inspire, influence leaders and teams and parent salespeople. If you're out there and you want to find your influence, this is the podcast. So I'm going to hand over to Justin now. Maybe Justin might tell us a little bit about himself, how he ended up at the Storm, maybe with that journalism background and some other sporting team backgrounds. And then we'll start to ask Justin about who influenced him and how he likes to influence others.
Thanks, Anton. No, it's good to be with you. I think, for me, from a career and professional point of view, as you mentioned there, I started actually in film and TV and worked on a number of different feature films and short films. I wrote and produced a number of shorts that made it to a few festivals over the years, would you believe? And then that transitioned into a role working in a channel which actually no longer exists, called Fox Footy Channel, which was the original iteration of, I suppose what we look at now when it comes to NRL League or the AFL channel on Fox. So was able to work there for a number of years, producing some content, producing a couple of short docos for Fox Footy. And from there, got a job working in the digital department for a company called Media Giants that was effectively servicing the AFL digital platforms at that point in time in Melbourne. So writing, directing, shooting, video content, which this is remembering at a stage where the internet was only just becoming a thing. Instagram, Facebook didn't even exist, which is incredible to think about now, let alone TikTok and Snapchat and all other forms of social media. So that was a really good time as the world was coming to grips with the internet and how digital content was going to shape our lives and change the way that we consumed content forever. And then from there, I started doing a little bit of on-camera work as well, and someone picked that up over Channel 9, and I was effectively poached by the Channel 9 sports newsroom here in Melbourne, and got a job as a sports reporter at Channel 9. I don't think I was very good at all, but did that for 3 years. It was a bit of fun. You learn about life and people and pressure and deadlines when you've got a 6 o'clock news bulletin, and remembering again back then the 6 o'clock news bulletin was everything to people. That was what you waited for to hear your news or watch your news. These days, obviously, it's by the second, let alone by the minute or the hour or the day. So that was a really good part of my corporate professional life, understanding the news cycle and how that works in a fresher environment like a newsroom. And then after that, I sort of started to think about how I could be more involved in a positive way with the skills that I had learned and been able to build over a period of time. And I always knew that I wanted to be involved in telling great stories and being a storyteller. I thought that was something that I really was passionate about doing, and I decided that I wanted to do it in a more positive way. So I got the opportunity to cross to the dark side, as they say, and I moved from the media to the rights holder side, and was given the opportunity to head up the communications digital team at the Essendon Football Club in the AFL. And then from there, my career has transitioned over a number of years through various different roles as I was promoted and provided with more opportunity and given more remit across marketing, across consumer business, that's membership, ticketing, merchandise, across commercial sponsorship, partnerships, fundraising and philanthropic, as well as obviously digital and media. And so that was a great experience for me at the Essendon Football Club. Through that period, we went through a lot of challenges. Probably have to be living under a rock in Australia not to know what happened at the Bombers through that period with the supplement scandal that endured. But through that time, I was able to, develop and grow and be promoted. And ultimately that helped, I think, in the long run to give me this opportunity to be given the chance to be a part of the recruitment process for the Melbourne Storm CEO job, which I landed 4 years ago, nearly to the, well, in 4 years ago in February. So, yeah, it's been hopefully that wasn't too long-winded an introduction into my career. Yeah, so then I've been CEO here now at Melbourne Storm for 4 years, and obviously I've changed codes and industries through that period, but I've absolutely loved it, and I'm genuinely passionate now about rugby league, a game that I didn't know a whole lot about, to be completely honest, before joining the Storm. But now I love every part about it. I love the tactics, the strategy, the athletes, the diversity in the cultures, the way that we're privately owned versus non-for-profit, and what that does to enable progression and creative commercial outcomes. The list goes on and on. So that's the very long-winded, but hopefully not too long, snapshot of my career to date and how I got to where I am.
Thanks for sharing, Justin. No, that it's really cool for our listeners to actually, get in behind the scenes and to see what's possible. You start in media and now you end up at the CEO of the Melbourne Storm. Big deal, and congratulations.
Yeah, well, it just shows there's no linear path towards becoming a CEO or position of leadership. You've got to remember that you follow whatever it is that wherever it takes you that can get you there, and if you want to get there, you will.
You want it badly enough, you will. Yep, absolutely. So talking about a no linear path, and I guess you're following, your, journey through life, and I'm guessing that you probably had a vision early in your career. Was there anyone that influenced you? Like, did you ever look out at, say, the Essendon CEO and go, you know what, you're that good, I want to be like that? Or was it someone in the media? What's some of the biggest influences on your life in the early days?
Yeah, it's a good question, isn't it? When you think back and reflect on influences in your life. I mean, first and foremost, I think your family becomes the ultimate influence on who you are, the values that you live and breathe by, the behaviours that you want to portray. The person who you are, I think, is most influenced by your upbringing and the people around you. And I'm certainly very lucky and privileged to have had such incredible parents around me during my upbringing that certainly made and shaped and influenced who I am today. I think in a professional sense, I've been asked that question quite a few times, and I've come to the realization that I really never had one single person that I looked at and said, you are the guy, or you are the girl, or you are the person who I am most influenced by. I've more looked at it and I've reflected on this quite a lot. And I think that if everybody and anyone listening was to do this, I've always looked at people who have been leaders in roles or in organisations or who I've had a connection with over a journey, and I've taken some of the things that I believe are positive characteristics around how they lead and influence. And then I've also taken some of the things that they do that I don't actually align with or agree with. And I think that through that part of my career, what I've done is been able to actually take parts of those characteristics or of those leadership qualities or influence qualities and learn from them and effectively help take those qualities and turn them into things that shape me as the leader I am today. Because, I don't think that there's any perfect leader. I don't think there's any specific leadership style that should be taken as, the be all and end all of how leaders influence, because at the end of the day, you are who you are. And, maybe we'll get to this in a little bit more detail, but and this sounds a little bit corny, I know, but it's true. I think authenticity in leadership and how you influence is everything. And if you are genuine and authentic to who you are as a person, when you're leading an organisation or people, you will be at your greatest to influence them to come on the journey, align with where you're heading, believe in the vision that you've put in place. They'll buy in. They'll feel like they belong to what the organisation or the purpose of why you're in there doing what you do, and they'll feel valued and like they're contributing to the success of the organisation. So, if you can bring all of that together for an individual person, that is influencing to me, and that's what I've been able to achieve. So I know I moved a little bit around there, but there's no single person in my career who's influenced me any more than any other than me taking various different things from every single person who I've ever worked with or worked under or been influenced by.
And shaped it so that you can become a genuine, authentic leader who aligns, gets people to believe, buys in, feels belonged, and feels valued and part of the purpose of our organisation.
Yes. I don't think there's anything more powerful than that. That's culture. That is exactly what culture is. It's how you bring people together to align on a purpose and a vision and make them feel valued and like they're contributing to where you're heading, what you're trying to achieve. And there's a lot of discussion these days about the environment that you're creating, culturally safe, creating healthy working environments for people to come and enjoy and feel like they're genuinely being able to grow and develop and feel purpose in what they're doing. So I think that the best way to do that is to create a culture where everybody can connect into what you're doing, where you're going and why you're doing it. And then from there, you're influencing every day.
The culture of connectedness is the words that I just wrote. Wow. Hey, best ever. Thank you. Couldn't beautifully put. So you can I ask you just a little bit about, so you've got a challenging job as a CEO, you've got probably an admin team, you've probably got a sports club, and then you've got this sporting team that's led by a coach. Can
Yes.
I ask, and I think given that if it's okay for me to ask you this, given that I'm interviewing the CEO of a sporting club, what's the relationship between, say, you and the coach like, and do you have a lot of influence there? And is that an important part of your role, or is that not really an important part? Do you know what I mean? Like, is that a big deal for you or not really?
Yeah, absolutely it is. Obviously, the buck stops with me as CEO. So clearly, the relationships that you build and form and have within the organisation with all the key decision makers and influencers are critical. So clearly, the senior coach is a great example of a really important and key stakeholder relationship internally for any CEO in a sporting organisation. Sports clubs are very different in terms of their structure and the business model that sits around it. And clearly, and for myself in particular, with a coach with the experience of Craig Bell, been around for 23 years, it's going to be a very different dynamic and relationship to, as an example, if I came in and had a first-time coach or a coach who has less experience. But a couple of points I'd make about that and my relationship with Faith, and more broadly with how we integrate into the football department within the overall club environment. It all comes down to having genuine respect between the two areas within your organisation. So, as an example, if the football department and Craig don't have respect for the admin area and the broader club and what we're trying to achieve, or vice versa, then everything can fall away really quickly. And I genuinely believe it takes a club to win a premiership, not a team. And for me, having that initial relationship was really important. So building trust and respect between the two of us to ensure that if I need to go and talk to him about something that I know he's not going to like the answer to, we've got the relationship and the trust there to enable me to do that without fearing what his response is going to be. Now, don't get me wrong, he's a scary man at the best of times. So there are times where clearly, that's important because he's not going to get everything he wants every time based on the fixture or based on a training schedule or based on whatever it might be. So the relationship's really important. Respect between the two of us is important. But then also the other part that Craig gets enough credit for is he understands what his role is within the organisation. He understands what he's contributing as the senior, and he doesn't try and be anything other than the coach. And often I think people get caught up in trying to do more than what's within their role and how they contribute to the organisation. And it's the old theory of sticking to your lane. It's of course you can offer feedback or opinions or be involved in all areas of the club, but when it comes to his core responsibility and what he's here to do and how he contributes to the success of the organisation, his job is to coach the football team.
Right.
And he's done a bloody good job of that over a long period of time. And there's a great level of respect there for the role that he plays and that we play to the overall success of the club. And for me, that's again, we talked about the word culture, and there's no individual, and Craig's an example of this, who believes he's any better than anyone else in the organisation, whether it's the receptionist or the senior coach or everyone in between. From the locker room to the boardroom, it actually doesn't matter who you are within the club. Everybody is treated with genuine respect. And if you start there, that is the secret to great culture and success. And that is why the Melbourne Storm has been so successful for such a long period of time.
Genuine respect from the locker room to the boardroom. Whoa. Beautiful answer. And what you're really saying is that we're all going to treat each other with respect, and we're going to care for each other to a degree. We're going to look after each other because that's what respect is, and understand that I've got a job, you've got a job, and we all contribute to the greater good. Holy dooly.
Exactly. Yeah, it's almost, it's about humility. You talk about being a good person first and a good player second, or being a good staff member. That for us is so important, and that comes back to respect and humility. And it's more important in the footy area because clearly players and coaches are on a pedestal externally to the club, and as they should be. They're the stars of the show that are putting on the content. They're the ones putting on the game every week, putting their bodies on the line. But what's important is when they do come off the ground and when they are interacting with other people around the club on a day-to-day basis, and members of the community, fans, members, sponsors, stakeholders, clients, they treat everybody with genuine respect and humility. And that's, again, why the Storm's such I think anyway, and I know I'm biased, but feel like our club and the brand that we have in the broader market and community is so strong because our people are inclusive, our people are respectful, our people are humble. They don't think they're any better than anyone else in society. They genuinely are interested in who you are, where you're from, and what you do. If you come in to our club, into our environment, we welcome you. We shake your hand, we look you in the eye, and sometimes it feels a little bit like a parent talking to their young child. But if you reinforce those really simple values in life around respect, around shaking someone's hand, around holding the door open for them, just around greeting them and welcoming them into the environment, it's amazing how far that goes in this day and age, because we were talking about digital before and technology. Like, if you think about the last time you were on a train or a tram, if you live in Melbourne, or any form of public environment, how often do you see people just interacting with one another? You don't. You see them on their phones. You see them with headphones in. You don't. That's it's a bit of a lost art almost, isn't it? So we encourage our players and our people to really engage with genuine curiosity, and I think that just goes such a long way. It's like if you had someone in the house, and they came in, you wouldn't just ignore them, or you wouldn't ask who they are. Like that's how we view it here. Like if people come visit for an appointment or a meeting, or we have a lot of coaches and high performance managers and others come to learn a little bit more about our culture, everybody walks up and says hello. Everybody says, hi, how are you? What's your name? Where you from? And that is so powerful in so many different ways.
It sure is. Unbelievable conversation. Unbelievable conversation. Thank you so much. Just greeting people and being welcoming is such
Yeah.
a big deal in
Yeah.
2020. And it's not hard.
The great Kevin Sheedy, who anyone who follows AFL will know. I mean, hopefully most sports fans and Australians would know. He had a saying, and I worked really closely with him for 5 or 6 years at Essendon. And when he came back after coaching GWS, just say hello. Just say hello. And he goes, he says, you never know where that will take you. If they say hello back, great. Then you can start a conversation. If they don't, well, you move on and you keep walking. But that was something that he always did, which was a pain in the ass, I must admit, when we were trying to get to something. Like we were always running late, but because he was always stopping and talking to people.
Which is beautiful, isn't it? Because he's giving of
Yeah.
his time. He realised that there's people that love to talk to him. And
Yes.
and those couple of seconds would change their life, Justin.
Mm.
I spoke to Kevin Sheedy, just like this. It's a big deal that you give your time to do this sort of stuff. And what I love is when people like you say something and then it shows up in their behaviour. So you're taking the time out of your day to do a podcast, and you're just doing it beautifully, and you're being so welcoming. So
My pleasure.
kudos. So can I just ask? This is probably a tougher question, if it's cool, just about the players themselves. And I only ever do positive stuff, so it won't be that tough. If you had to influence one of the players in 2024, so you've got this new young, and I don't think the Melbourne Storm's got this problem, though some clubs are struggling through this at the moment, as you know. What is it? And like, you've given me all the good stuff already, but let's say there's someone that errs, that makes a mistake, that doesn't make the right decision. Let's say that Melbourne Storm probably take a different approach to it and probably do something different to other clubs. But how do you handle that sort of stuff? Like, that's a tough one for a CEO and a coach, where you've got behavior that needs to be changed, or a mindset that needs to change, or an attitude that needs to be changed. How do you influence that, Justin? I hope that's not too tough a question.
No, it's definitely a challenge that can come up from time to time. That's really important that you address it, because ultimately, from our perspective, one thing that's really important is accountability. So from a player point of view, like, the players buy into a framework of accountability around what it is to be a Melbourne Storm player and person. And ultimately, within that are a set of values, behaviours, and responsibilities, because they are ultimately custodians of the purple jersey and the brand of the Melbourne Storm. So there's a couple of parts to a player that's not living and breathing those values that would come into place. I would like to think and hope that before it even gets to the coach or the CEO, that we've got a really strong leadership group that work closely with the players more broadly to ensure that they're upholding and living and breathing the standards and the expectations that we have on them as players and as people. Now, clearly, if it ends up getting beyond the player leadership group, the coach and the football manager get involved, and if it's really serious, then I would obviously be getting involved at a public or a more larger level. There's definitely a component of this type of situation where we look to individuals as a person first and foremost. So we don't want to punish the person; we want to punish the action or the behaviour. So there needs to be accountability for that, contrition, remorse for that, and then ultimately, a plan around how they're going to, regain the trust and the respect and, the broader goodwill of the club and the organisation to put in place a series of plans or actions that they're going to do to to demonstrate to us that they've learned from the mistake that they made. We understand that that happens from time to time. We know that they're a good person and they've made an error, they've made a mistake, their judgment for whatever reason led them to that, but they've owned that, they've taken responsibility for that, and they've put in place a plan for how they're going to make sure it never happens again. And for me, that's pretty much what it boils down to. And that's all around accountability, around what the expectations are to be a Melbourne Storm person and player.
Whoa. Hey, can I ask you? You're so invested in person and player, like just more than anyone else, or more than a lot of people that I speak to, especially in leadership roles. Where does that come from, if you don't mind me asking? This is just a real Justin Anderson question. Where do you get this drive, this commitment to human beings? You started this comment. I think one of the first few words you said was "be a good human." Like, where does that come from? Is this something instilled in you? I know it's a value, but
Yeah, it's good. I don't really know. I think I just think I find personally a lot of enjoyment in seeing people grow and develop, and seeing people be proud of what they've achieved. And for me, it's about giving them, obviously, in a leadership sense, the confidence to be able to go and do that, as an individual or professionally. So I think I've just been brought up with empathy and care, and and as I said, I really do. I am passionate about seeing people get the best out of themselves and giving them the confidence to do that. So I'm a massive human leader, if you think about it in a theoretical context. I don't have for me. I really do focus on people's strengths and try and double down on what they're good at, rather than focusing too heavily on the areas they need to continue to develop. Now, I don't shirk providing feedback or giving people, genuine feedback on what they need to do to develop and grow. But at the same time, I'm more in the camp of providing constructive, productive feedback that's going to help them be better, than I am in the camp of consistently telling them what they do wrong, because I just don't feel like you get anywhere in going down that path. That's not my style. Don't get me wrong; a lot of people do, and it can be a highly successful style of leadership. But for me, I'm a human leader, and that's what I've learned over time. The minute I try and be something that I'm not, is the minute that you shouldn't be in leadership, because it just becomes really obvious to people. People can see through a lack of authenticity, and I know that people follow and are listening and are engaged in what I'm doing when I'm being myself.
which might come from your storytelling background too, back in the day when you said you leaned into storytelling.
I think so. I really do, because I used to love. I was a massive. I don't have any. I did all humanities subjects. I loved creative writing. I loved writing scripts, stories. Hopefully, become a relatively good communicator as well of stories, and building narratives that people want to buy into and engage in, and feel like they're part of the vision of where you're heading. So for me, that's what I focus on, and what in my role and what I do. And then I put other people around me that can support me in those other areas, to ensure that I've got a great executive team that supports the areas that that I've got gap. There's that saying around putting people who are smarter than you around you, and I think I'm a great example of doing that. I've got great people around me in their expert matter areas who are smarter than me in those areas, and I have no issue with that, because the end of the day, we're a team that's working together towards an outcome, and I rely on them. So I'm happy to have people who are smarter than me in those areas.
I
Makes a
love
lot
it.
of
Love it. Hey,
sense.
in a sort of a line or a summary, what did you, and this is just an off-topic question because I'm just really intrigued. I'm intrigued by your answers. What's your biggest achievement at the Storm? Like, what are you most and maybe not your achievement personally, because that'd be the wrong question to ask such a human leader because your team achieves it. What's the best thing about the Storm? What do you love about the Storm? What's the best thing that's ever happened at the Storm?
Oh, geez, that's a big question. Uh, oh, excuse me. I think one thing that just comes to mind. So I probably would love more time to think about that question, to be
Oh,
honest.
sorry. Okay. All right.
But
Cool. Cool.
no. But one thing that does come to mind is when we were coming out of. I started in a COVID year. We were coming out of the 2 years of COVID, and in my second year, I was talking to our chairman Matt Tripp about how we can thank our membership base for sticking loyal with us for 2 years through the COVID period. Obviously, everybody was going through all the challenges that we were going through commercially and financially, and you know, um, we were hoping to have a year where we were coming out the other side of that, and we were going to start to put in place our plans around our traditional revenue streams coming back into the club. So, sponsorships and memberships and ticketing and all those things. And through that conversation, we started talking about, well, what would it look like if we gave every single member who stuck with us through the COVID years of 2020 and 2021 a free membership for the 2022 season? And the thought at the time was like, oh my God, we're mad to do that. Like it's $4 million of revenue to the club, such a significant amount of money that, we need to continue to operate our business. And our chairman said to me, no, I think this is something we should do. And I was explaining it to someone. And at the time I said, I think this is just a Melbourne Storm thing to do, which sums up the culture of this club. Like, it was giving back to the people who continued to stay loyal to us through a period of time. And then what we were able to do as an executive team was go away and go, okay, we're going to give every member a free membership. There's a $4 million revenue gap in our P&L. Let's come up with some ideas. Let's be really creative. There's no bad ideas. And let's find some ways to see if we can somehow bridge that gap in revenue for a year. And it's funny how people, when they're put in a place that's challenged and given a challenge to try and do something differently, it's really interesting how quickly they can actually adapt and change and do something and start to think creatively. And it's set up a whole range of other things for me in my career in the last couple of years, where it's a great example of how, when you're put in a certain situation, the challenge is put in front of you, you can actually achieve things that you didn't think you could, or you wouldn't have, because you would have just been lazy. We would have just rolled over into another year. We would have just clicked. And we came up with a series of, sorry, it's a long-winded story, but we came up with a series of commercial initiatives that were put in place. Some were high risk, some were low risk, to try and find a way to bridge that gap. And in that year, I'm pleased to say, at the end of that season, not only did we give every Storm every Storm member a free membership who had stuck with us through COVID, we also were able to bridge that gap in revenue through all these other creative means and deliver the club a more profit that enabled us to obviously continue to invest back. And the goodwill we created with our members, who are hopefully lifetime valued customers of our club. Not that we call them customers, because they're not, they're our members. But if you think about it in a consumer business sense, and we were able to find a way to bridge the gap in the revenue. So that's probably the greatest achievement, just thinking off the top of my head. Sorry about the long-winded story, but it was pretty incredible that we were able to do it. And that's a credit to the whole club, the exec team, and everybody that was able to build out all these different programs and initiatives that could help us to find the revenue that we were going to lose through doing something that was such a great initiative.
Because it was a Melbourne Storm thing to do.
Yes, which I love. I love that.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Justin Rodski, amazing, mate. I don't know how to thank you. Really, really appreciated. Look, mate, giving of your time. Thanks for being so welcome, and thanks for a beautiful conversation. Thanks for sharing what human leadership looks like. Can't wait to share this with our audience, and I'll be in touch, mate.
Thanks, Anthony. My pleasure to be with you.
Really cool, mate. Thanks heaps.